Oh, you're live. That was fast. Internet's fast here, honey. Welcome, everyone. Got a shadow from my. Hello. We made it. I'm going to give it a few minutes. I'm all nervous for some reason. Like, I took a couple days off to make this transition, and all of a sudden, it's like I'm starting all over again. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here that are waiting and that are on here. I like the thumbs up already. I'm so grateful to be here. I can't even tell you. Okay, I have something really special. I'm going to show you where we are, and it's perfect timing. It couldn't be any more perfect. I mean, I guess it could, but to introduce you guys, look where we are. I'm going to show you our view. So there's a lot of new builds going on here. In a minute, I'll tell you where we are. But look, oh, it's kind of small in here. You see this boat right here? It's like a huge mega yacht, but it looks like it's super tiny though, honey. We were both like, oh my god, it's our first yacht that we've seen here. But
That's easy 150 foot boat. Like it's humongous.
Yeah, my husband said, Bud said it's easily 150 foot yacht. It looks like a little toy there. But y'all look, this is hi from Croatia. Wow, we're almost neighbors. All right, you guys, I'm so happy to share this with you because this is literally a dream. I mean, manifesting a dream come true. And I'm going to be sharing a lot about that. They're like jackhammering. So I want to show this. I was hoping to be outside, but they started construction and the sun was kind of blowing out behind us. But this is literally a dream come true. And to be sharing it with you is still very surreal. And there has been so many lessons learned here in everything we talk about here on the daily tune-ins and in consciousness. But we are in Saranda, Albania. And when I say that in my head, I'm like, Albania? Like, I never even knew where Albania was, quite frankly, a year ago, 6 months ago. And we ended up here simply by listening to our soul. Like, I'm going to keep using these words because the practical application of everything that I know, everything that I have taught from like the early days of and I say taught, but everything I've talked about and believed from my I am soul mama days. That was like 10 years ago. And talking about mindset and, and how we manifest things. And I'm not like here to manifest coach or like it's all about consciousness. And I had always had this dream. I was doing these cheesy videos too back in the day. But when I wrote my book Soul Mama, I had a brand and a business, and that's where I got started with hypnotherapy and doing all of that. My boys were really small, and I was doing these marketing videos. And I remember saying to my ex-husband now, but at the time being like, man, one day I'm going to be doing these videos and I'm going to be in some like magical place. I can't believe this yacht's like right outside of our balcony. And I'm going to be doing these videos and I'm this background. And I had this dream. And in my head, I thought it was going to be in Southern California because that's where we were living. And I thought it was going to be in Laguna Beach, like all of the thinking of what what this was going to look like was so logical, right? It was so logical as to where, what this was going to look like. Fast forward 10 years, but at that point, this dream was birthed. So I'm going to like kind of do the whole, conception thing. This idea was conceived 10, 11, 12 years ago in mind. And it's been in the works literally for a decade. And throughout that whole time, I like there was if I look at it now, I can kind of break it up into like trimesters, the equivalent of what like the stages of pregnancy are. So this idea was conceived in the first trimester. You're kind of like, oh, like, am I really pregnant? Is this really happening? Like your whole life changes, but like nothing physically changes. But this, what's happening is like there's a seeding process, there's a gestation process that's happening that you don't know it, you don't really feel it. I mean, you get a little bit nauseous, and then you go into the second trimester, and things start to happen and things start to look up. But in my life, when things started to happen, it was like all of these pieces of my life were shifting. They had to shift. I had to, like, my, all parts of my life were not in a healthy stage. Like, I wasn't completely unhealthy, but I had to start moving through this process of changing and purging and really getting healthy. I was not spiritually connected as much as I wanted to be. And at that point, I was taking classes. That's where I became a spiritual practitioner over time, but started then. And, I was looking at the jobs that I was doing, and I was going to, hypnotherapy school and starting to do, the client work to get my certification. And then my marriage wasn't healthy at all. And had to start taking steps. I was really slow in that aspect, because I was afraid. So that had to start shifting. And then, when that started shifting, everything shifted. Like, we ended up leaving California and going to Austin, Texas, and getting to Austin and going through divorce, and then, meeting my now husband, and like going through that whole process of, oh my God, this is so soon. I wasn't expecting this relationship to come up. So all of this stuff was like shifting and changing, and it was exciting, and it was scary, and it was all this thing. But all the while, y'all, I was in my mind, I was like, one day, not one day. And I know better than to say one day, because typically one day doesn't lead to anything. I was consistently keeping my eye on the prize. I knew I would get back into doing the work that I love, but at that point I was a single mom, so I had to go back into corporate just because, to be safe. And but I just kept doing. I was doing workshops outside of my job. I was still doing as much as I could to keep my certification of hypnotherapy, to having, doing client work here, as much as I could, juggling a lot, still learning, still going to classes in my spiritual practitioner, not certification, but in that road. So my spirituality was still kind of developing. Everything was developing and developing. And then COVID hit. Now, I got married in 2020 to Bud. And then from there, like, when we came together in consciousness, that's why I always use that saying, where two or more are gathered, there I am. And the I am presence is spirit. It's that beautiful, it's that soul, it's the soul of who we are. And when our souls came together and we started to have these different experiences, all of a sudden we're like, what's the big dream? What do we want? And we wanted a healthy place. And we, talked about all for years with my boys. It'd be like, okay, you live anywhere. Would you want an ocean view or mountain view? And none of us could ever come up with an answer, because we were like, we want both. And so, like, it was always just this discussion that would come up. And we always wanted a sea view. We always wanted a mountain view. And we kept moving forward, but it just didn't look logical, working this corporate job, and Bud and I were coming together. And everything was shifting, that second trimester, like, everything in your body shifting, and like the development of the fetus goes into fast forward motion, right? So we were in that fast forward motion, moving and doing all of these great things. And then we finally decided, you know what, let's go for it. Let's go for it. And this was back in September, October of 2020. And it made no sense, because, COVID was happening. Everything was in lockdown. We didn't experience any of this. And like, we didn't experience any throughout this whole thing. We've never experienced, like, feeling restricted. We've had to work differently with traveling. We've had to work around restrictions, but we've kept our ability to stay free and true to our what we wanted and what we felt was proper for our health. And we were like, let's go for it. We'll figure it out as we go. And as y'all know, I've shared with you, like, we let go of everything, and we started the purge of all of our stuff. We purged, our home. Everything shifted. And like, once you get to that third trimester, it gets heavy, right? It gets, like, your body gets heavy, the responsibility starts to grow. You're like, oh my God, I'm about to birth this thing, and what am I doing? And I'm going to be a terrible mom, or I'm going to be a good mom. Like, I don't know. I was constantly like, I don't know what kind of mom I'm going to be. I have no clue how to do this. But that's how we got to that point in early 2021 last year, where we were like, what are we doing? And at that point, there was no turning back. We didn't have a house anymore. We didn't have things, and we just blindly went. And as you know, we ended up in Mexico, and then we ended up in Ukraine. Ukraine was this whole piece of the puzzle that I wasn't expecting. And Ukraine was the metaphor for when you start to transition, and it goes from you're having labor pains to you transition to, okay, it's time to start pushing. It's start to you're about to give birth. That 5 months in Ukraine was when we had to purge, right? We were transitioning. And it was so beautiful how our souls took us to Ukraine, because, as y'all know, it was dark there, and it was dark emotionally and mentally for us. We were lonely, we were alone. So we just had to go inward. We had to descend into those depths and purge out our fears, purge our grief from like everything we had let go of. And in that loneliness and in that lostness, I mean, there were many times where I would break down in Ukraine and just be like, honey, what have we done? Like this is insane. But remember, like when you're in birth at that point and you're in that transitionary period and you're pushing, right? You're pushing and you're just thinking, what have I done? I want this over with. I don't want to do this. And then you just keep going. There is no choice but for us to keep going. And then practically, as you all know who've been around here for a little bit on these daily tune-ins, we were trying to find a ride out of Ukraine. We couldn't get out. We had a couple things set up, and then it would fall through, which would just take us even deeper, because the disappointment and the frustration and the anger that we just kept feeling and kept experiencing was just overwhelming. It was overwhelming and so disappointing. But I knew, like the whole time, we knew that there was something happening. There was something organizing. And in consciousness, we know when we just keep holding a vision, we just allow the consciousness of our thoughts and our emotions to just keep organizing the idea. The conception of the idea happened 10 years ago, but for 10 years I've been holding it in mind with no logical way of how this was going to happen. And in Ukraine, it was the final push, and it was painful. So when we got the call that our drivers were ready, they got what they needed to be able to travel and feel comfortable traveling, and they said we can leave. The week before we left was what I called the initiation. Looking back on it now, I'm like, boy, we got initiated. And what that is, that's really what I wanted to cover today. The initiation process of change is the hardest part, I think. And all of it was kind of hard, but it was just the intention and the vision kept us moving forward. Like, what's next? This. What's next? This. What's next? This. And then it comes to, this is ready to come. This is ready to organize. It's ready to come into manifestation. And at that point, Spirit, God doesn't give us tests to punish us. It's kind of like it's given us these moments to test our skill sets that we have learned through the entire process of this gestation period. From the idea, from the conception to when we give birth, there's a lot that happened. And think of that if you had a baby, or you just know someone, you don't have to like experience it to know what we're talking about here. There's so many things that happen. There's so many emotions and mental readiness that has to be prepared over those 9 months or 10 months of pregnancy. And it's getting ready. It's going through the excitement. Then like, oh my gosh, this is for like, we're choosing this. And then it's, oh my gosh, everything's changing, and it gets really difficult. And throughout that whole thing, you've got to get your mind and your heart ready, and you've got to get your soul like ready, right? And that's how then when you come to the birthing process, you're ready, right? No matter how hard it is, no matter how much it hurts, you will do anything for that child or that idea in what we're talking about here. So the week before we left, we had every challenge that could have happened appear in front of us. And it was where we had to practice the faith and the skill sets of holding the line that we've been talking about on these daily tune-ins. We had to practice the skill sets of just knowing knowing the truth and truly just keeping the vision in front without getting in and keeping in that 0 point where there's no energy going out, there's no fear, there's no anxiety. And I'm telling you, that was really hard. There was a lot of mental and emotional chatter that had to be equaled out. There, the ego was like, oh my God, we have all this stuff. And the soul was like, trust me, trust me. And these two were working hand in hand for 1 week. And we had, money that we had to transfer over to our account. That took 7 days for Wells Fargo to give us access to it. But yet, if we went somewhere and swiped our card, that money was taken out of our account within 5 minutes, if that, or, sooner than that. But getting access to money for us took us a week. So the drivers were ready to go, and one of them had to be back in Ukraine by a certain date because he had another trip to do. So our time frame was like we had a window, and we couldn't pay him because we were waiting for this money to come. Finally, we got access. Then we had to pay him in cash. And Wells Fargo wouldn't let us take all the cash out. It took us 2.5 days to be able to take it out. Calling them and saying, can you just extend my withdrawal limit? Well, you don't have a US phone number, so no. Like, what? There's money in there. You see it in there. Like, it was, so there was so much work having to be done with not letting Wells Fargo, the darkness of the 3D world, to take over, right? We talked about this. The battle between light and dark is in this initiation phase. The dark in that scenario was the banking system that was in between moving forward and us. So what did I have to do? What did we have to do? We had to hold the line of consciousness. This is how this is showing up for you. Like, this is a practical application. We're doing laundry. We have this, like, I don't know if you probably hear it. We can't get the thing balanced, so it's freaking out. So this is the practical application of how this is unfolding in real life. And when I talk about the holding the line, it's holding the line of consciousness, just knowing, staying right above that line where you fall below into those life constricting emotions, and staying above in those life expansive emotions of love and trust and not fear. Fear's down here. Love and trust and just pure belief. I just spit. Sorry, I don't know if you saw that with the sun shining. But, so then we finally got access. We were like, okay, we got the money. We're like, let's go. And then he's like, okay, we need tests. Like, we need the tests, and and this is a personal thing. Y'all, I don't care what you choose. I want you to have a choice. I want me to have a choice. And for me and for Bud, this whole pandemic thing, there's something off with it. It hasn't felt right since day one. We have chosen not to do any of the things, and we were like, oh my gosh, we don't want to do it. But here's the other thing, and I've talked about this weeks ago about kind of getting right to the crisis point. What is the biggest fear in every moment when you're holding the line and you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm having to cross this border. I'm having to cross this line, not the border, but cross this line. What is the worst case scenario? And for Bud and I, the worst case scenario was having to do a test. So we're like, okay, are we willing? Are we willing to go that, are we willing to go and kind of compromise our beliefs? And at this point, we're like, if that's what it takes, we're good. And I had to sit with that. We had to sit with that for a half a day because we had to go find these tests. Well, we finally start going around town, but none of the places we were going to could guarantee that we could use that test on the different borders. So we're kind of like, well, what's the point then? If if we get a test that says negative, we can't necessarily use it in Hungary and Serbia and that, like, what? But we ended up, our driver was like, hold on, I have a doctor. So he hooked us up, and our driver shows up in the morning, ready to go. We packed the car. He's got our tests already, and we get on the road, and all of a sudden, Bud and I are like, oh my God, the reality that we were on our way to move into this next stage, this new, to birth this actual dream that's been in the works for years before we were even together. And then our dream came together to just live in a place that just filled our soul, that had water and mountains. We could feel it. We've talked about this. We didn't know it was going to be Albania. Quite frankly, a year ago, we thought it was going to be southern Spain. That's where we ended up. That's where we took off on this journey headed towards. We thought it was going to be Spain. Once we got out of the unknown and we left, our journey took us to Ukraine, first to Mexico, then to Ukraine. We never thought it'd be in Ukraine. And at that point, we were not at the mercy, but we were completely surrendered to where our souls took us, completely surrendered. And then while we were in Ukraine, came up as an idea about this place called Albania, because we were doing research about some of the places that had some of the least restrictions, that were kind of quiet with the whole thing. And the more, Bud's a super analytical researcher. He kept showing me stuff. He said, look at this, look at this about Albania. And all of a sudden we're like, Albania, what? And the more we did, and he got on some expats groups and figured out that there was a community here, and that's what we were missing so much of. We just knew our souls just guided us to this place we had never been. We had never, we haven't experienced. We just followed it. The craziest thing. It didn't feel wrong, but it felt really scary because who knows what would have happened. So we left and we were birthing this whole idea, going to this place. We had, sight unseen and on pure faith, but it did not feel irresponsible at all. It felt so right and it felt so true. And y'all, that is what it's about. It's about that feeling of, okay, all right, I've surrendered. Let's do this. So we finally get to the Hungarian border. That was a nightmare, quite frankly. We had extended our stay, overextended our visa, because we couldn't get our ride, we couldn't get out. So they said you either have to pay a fine or you can sign this paper that says you won't return for 5 years. And if you do, you have to pay double that fine. So we were both like, we are done with Ukraine. We're going to sign that paper. So we signed off saying we wouldn't return to Ukraine. We went to the Hungarian side. We get to Hungary. They open up the doors to look in our van. They see the dog. And the dog, they're like, oh, you need a passport for your dog. Y'all, we have done so much research. And we had all these paperwork, everything. We had 8 pages of paperwork for this dog, but we didn't have the one thing that they needed. And they were like, you have to go back. You can't come through. And we're like, we can't go back. We just signed a paper saying we couldn't. They're like, not our problem. You got to turn around. So we were freaking out. And so we went back. We were sitting literally between the borders in the car, hyperventilating, being like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the Ukrainian guy came over from the border and said, you need a paper. You can't come back in. You need something from the Hungarian side saying why they turned you back around. So we called the US Embassy. They were no help, quite frankly. They were just like, there's nothing we can do. So we're like, but you told us, the US Embassy said we have to leave, but now you're telling us you can't help us, get back, get back in. You can't help us. We're stuck between these two borders. And so then we were like, okay, we'll go back to the Hungarian side to get this letter, because we at least needed that for them to even consider, for them meaning Ukraine, to even consider letting us back in to go to the next border passing, which is north, that has a 24-hour vet that would check the dog out and give her paperwork. So we're like, what's the paperwork needed? Immunizations, sign off from a vet that says she's healthy. We're like, we have it all, but because it wasn't on some stupid passport, that's why we couldn't get through. It was insane. It was so dumb. But it's like you just sit there and this is when the 3D world, right? Here's the 3D world coming up again, being like, it has to be exactly this, our way or no way. And they had the power, so they thought. But in consciousness, we have the power, right? I had the power. So Bud and I got our passports. We walked back to the Hungarian side, and we walked into to the guy, and we're like, we need a translator. Can we please get a translator? We stood out in the cold. He's like, 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. And these guys were scary as what. They were just really intimidating. And 10 minutes later, we were waiting there, we're shivering, literally shivering. And a lot of it was nervousness. And because we were just like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do if we can't? Like, we had no clue, y'all, what we were going to do because we were literally stuck between borders. Finally, the translator came. He had this bright smile and he said, I'm the shift supervisor. My name is Tibor. What can I do for you? And we literally went through the whole story and we just said, honestly, we don't know what we're going to do. And we're just transiting through Hungary. We don't have to like stop. We're going to go straight through. And he was like, oh, okay, hold on one second. Wait, give me 10 minutes. 20 minutes later, he came back from the customs agent and he said, I have to call my supervisor because the customs agent said that they won't let you through. So he invites us into the office, sits us down. It's warm, but we're still freaking out. I'm about to literally pee my pants. I was like, quite frankly, I'm pretty vulnerable here. I was about to poop my pants. Like I was like, my stomach was a mess, you all. And all of a sudden, he comes back out and he's like, call my supervisor. You're good. You're good. They're going to let you through. When you go get in your car, go through this line here. And when you go through the line, you tell them to come get me. We did. And we got through. And Tibor was our angel. That's how. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I know, like I already knew it. But you know how when you know something intellectually, like, oh, consciousness, you've all your angels show up. Everything shows up exactly how it's supposed to. And as long as you hold the line of consciousness and just know it's working in your favor, all the things show up. But in those moments, though, man, it was work to hold that line. It was so much work. And when we got through, Bud and I were like crying, like hugging the dog. It was like a big love fest. Our drivers were two of the most amazing, like lifelong friends. They were about, younger than me, but about our age. We had the best time. We were all high-fiving and it was a celebration. And then all of a sudden it got quiet and we got an hour or two into that extension. And I was like, oh my God. I said, honey, we have 3 more borders. And if it has to be like that, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to have a heart attack. And so for the next few hours, the work begins. This is the transition part. This is the birth part. This is where we work. I did the work, and this is where as you go through your initiation phase, this is the moment that you tap into your skill sets. This is the moment you get yourself prepared. This is the moment you breathe through the fear. I was so scared at some points where I was like, oh my gosh, if the border to Serbia is like that, I'm not going to make it. I can't handle that kind of stress. And working through it wasn't stress. It was more like holding the line was what was so exhausting. This is working in my favor. This is in my highest and best good. Angels are going to show up. They're going to be in the form of humans. This is all going to work out. Like this is going on the entire time. We get to Serbia. They like didn't even care. We went through and we're like, that's two borders, 2 more. And then we again celebrating, yeah, and being like, oh my God, in 4 hours we got another border, working through the thing. Their labor pains. Like these are the labor pains. It's like here's another contraction. Here's where we descend again. What if they don't let us in? What if it's the same thing? Now we really don't have the right paperwork for the dog, and we know it. So when you know something, like we went into Hungary not even expecting that. We were like, we have a folder full of documents. But because it wasn't the right documents, now I know that we don't have what we need, the proper date, the proper paper. So working through all the stuff, going through Montenegro. And at the same time, we're seeing these places and these mountains and these snowstorms. And, we're in these switchbacks and going up through the mountains of Montenegro. And our brains are blown with beauty. My brain is blown with like, what the hell is Montenegro? We're in it. Like, I don't know that. I haven't ever thought of Montenegro and I'm here. So there's like this, my soul was like, yes, you love adventure. I brought you on the best adventure I could. I brought you on this road trip so you could see parts of the world that you never dreamed of seeing. I'm giving you these surprises. How do you love it? And my ego's like, you got a border coming, so again, being open-hearted and feeling it all. And at the same time, being like, okay, this is in my highest and best good. My soul brought me on this journey. My soul knows exactly what's happening. She knows she's got me protected. And I was talking to my guides. I'm like, you guys got me, right? Because I'm about to freak out. I'm about to poop my pants. You got me, right? I'm going to have some clean underwear and you're going to get me through this border, right? Like, this is how I talk to my guides. Like they like, I literally would talk to them like I would talk to you if you're in my home. And I'm like, you got me, right? You got me. And I close my eyes and I would just work through any panic, anything. And all of a sudden I'd open my eyes and we were on these mountain roads switching back to near, near, near. And it was nauseating because I was in stress and it was beautiful at the same time. And then we come through this tunnel and there's a big road slide and they're like, it's going to take us 2 days. You can't pass. And we're like, oh my God, now what? What's going to happen? Like, what do we do now? But we were in this most majestic place. And like where this roads or mudslide, not mudslide, rock slide was, we had to stop in the middle of the road. There was cars all, a whole line behind us. But yet we're like, oh my God, look at the beauty around us. Like, it was shocking. We couldn't even get lost in the idea that like we didn't know what we were going to do because we weren't going to stay there for 2 days. So all of a sudden we turn around. Some guy was like, oh, you just have to go to the next pass, which, was a little bit out of the way. But that way then became this most majestic way, even further up in these mountains and coming up in like massive expanses of mountains and meadows and snow like I've never seen before, like deep snow. The dog was running around at one point when we'd stop. And so having this experience, and again, going back to birth, like there's those moments where you're like, this is awful, I'm gonna die. And then there's like those moments where you're like, I'm giving birth, like this is happening. So again, all the roller coaster, the initiation is intense, right? So then we finally get to the next border, Montenegro, and they're like, we gotta, do you have any drugs? Do you have any alcohol? Do you have any cigarettes? We're like, no, no, no. And they're like, any dogs? And our driver, he was such a beauty. He was very Christian. And he told us later, he said, I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to be honest either. I don't want to be like, yes, we knew, because he knew the situation. So he said, oh, I'm sorry. What? No, no, no. What? He just kept saying, what? And they were like, oh, never mind. And they came to the back of the van and opened it up and just was asking questions about their stuff. But we had the dog on the floor at her feet. And if they hungry, they opened up the side door of the van and looked in. We weren't trying to hide her, but that's how they saw her. So man, y'all, this guy's custom agents looking in the back of the van, and I'm like, we're effed. If they open this up, we're effed. And then we just have to start the whole process again, like we did in Hungary, and just walk through it. He didn't even open the van. He's like, go ahead. We got through that one, and we were like, oh my God, that's 3 borders. That's 3 borders. We're through 3. And we got one more. We got Albania. And like that one was the biggest hurdle for me because it was the final one. And at that birth point when they're like, one more push, push, that one's usually the most painful one. That one's the most intense. And we had 6 hours between Montenegro and the Albanian border. So again, the work started. For 6 hours, I just sat in that van, breathing through, shaking, working through the shakes, working through the fear, working through it. Get to Albania, ask a couple questions. We were through. And at that point, the initiation phase turned to celebration. That's when the baby is born. And we knew that this vision that started in my mind, when I thought it was going to be Europe, I thought it was going to be Spain, I thought it was going to be the things that I knew. I had never guessed it would be in a place like this. And when we walked into this apartment that we, again, rented sight unseen, we were flabbergasted. we didn't know what to do. We're still processing it, quite honestly. We just sit out here and we just are shocked. We are shocked. And this dream, I can't tell you how long I've held it. I can't. I told you 10 years longer. But y'all, it's here. And this initiation piece is what everyone is going to be shifting into. You will have an initiation in your own life at this time, because that's the time these energies that we've been talking about, the increase in the frequencies, the increase is creating change. It's going to show up differently in all of our lives. It all depends on where you are. It all depends on what your life is. I shared this experience because this was how it showed up for me. But everything we're talking about on these daily tune-ins about how to navigate the energies, how to navigate it through a higher consciousness of knowing that everything is in our highest and best good, knowing that it is intense as you know what, shifting, birthing the higher reality, stepping through that portal. The portal is the birth, the portal is the initiation. It's when you take all the time it's taken from the conception of the idea to that moment when you are pushing that reality into existence, into manifestation. And in that intense time, whatever it is, for me it was a week, but the Ukraine was that final labor. It was like, oh, we're in labor, this is happening, we're in labor. It was 5 months of labor, and then this week was the initiation, it was the birth. And that's when every single skill set that is required to birth something comes into fruition. And as long as I knew what was happening, and I just had to keep the line, hold the line of consciousness, higher consciousness, knowing this reality was being birthed, knowing I was taken care of, knowing my soul took me to this path, knowing that it was all in the highest and best good of our new reality, knowing everything was working out, the knowing and the trusting of this and allowing this to play out and just be conscious of it. It was just observing my soul being like, it's okay. And having the ego say, yeah, but the border, it's okay. Yeah, but the border, hungry was traumatizing. You got through it, didn't you? Yeah, it's like, seriously, it's how it shows up it's like a puppet show in my head. And I'm just observing this going on. And at the same time, just breathing through it, breathing, right? In birth, the breath is the holy breath. We've talked about it here. The holy breath of those 30 hours in that van was what got me through that transition, that initiation. And I share this so that you too can work through whatever the initiation is for you. You can hold that line through your holy breath, through your consciousness, just watching it all unfold, knowing it's taking you to a higher vision. Because if you allow the fear to take over, it'll take you to a parallel reality where you repeat the same lessons until you get through that initiation with your new skill set so that you can rise into that higher reality. Okay? So I want your initiation, your shift, I want that to be as successful as this was for me, because like I'm like walking around being like, I got this thing now. I got it. I can get whatever I want. I can manifest it now. I've just watched myself manifest the biggest dream I have ever held in mind, other than my kids. But in like reality in life, this is the biggest dream, and I'm living it now, and I know how to do it, and I'm going to do it over and over again. And I'm going to say it here. When that big mega yacht came out, I have no desire to buy one of those, but I'm like, it would kind of be cool to experience one of them. And when that yacht came in front of us, I was like, honey, look what we just did. We're going to have the experience of being on one of those mega yachts. And right across this little inlet here, I think I forgot to show this to you, right across, right there, that's Corfu, Greece. And this is the Ionian Sea. It's where it's kind of in between. I didn't know all this. It's in between the Mediterranean and the Adriatic Sea is the Ionian Sea. And I was like, we're going to cross the Ionian Sea. We're going to go over to Corfu and Greece in one of those mega yachts. And, if the universe wants to take me somewhere else on a mega yacht, okay. But why not? Now, any experience that we want to have, I have no doubts will manifest it. I got this birthing thing. I know how to manifest stuff now. And it's not about like, oh, manifestation. It's like, I know how to follow my soul. And she wants to have an experience. She wants to have adventure. She wants my kids on this adventure. She's going to work that out. And we're going to be consistently up leveling and looking forward to the next initiation, because the initiation point is what most people will avoid because it's painful, but it's such a short-lived piece that once you're through it and you're in that higher reality, you're evolving, you're raising your consciousness, you're expanding, you're moving up. That's what I want for you. So don't avoid the initiation, allow it to come. Do what needs to be done. Practice your skill sets. Trust your holy breath. Trust where you're being led. I would never, 10 years ago, if you would have said, oh, you're going to live your dream, but it's going to be in Albania, I would have been like, what part of the map do I start to look for Albania? Like, I wouldn't have known where it was, y'all. I had no idea. And here I am. One of my top 3 places that I've always wanted to go to is in Greece. And I now look at Greece every single day. Haven't been there yet because they're still kind of weird with this whole thing. But once this whole thing is gone, which it's happening because I'm going to manifest that for the entire globe, the entire world. We're all coming together in consciousness to just be done with this whole narrative that has controlled us, tried to control us for 2 years. It's done. And so it is, and it's going to be done. And when it is, we are going to Greece. And I will also have another thing checked off of my list of things that I've always wanted to do, and that is going to Greece. But in the meantime, I get to physically look at it every single day. Like, I don't say this to brag. I say this because I'm still day 2 of living the reality of a dream that I've held for 10 freaking years in a place that I never would have guessed. And that only comes when we just allow ourselves to surrender and truly follow where she's taking us. In planetary consciousness, she's taken us to an amazing place. And each and every one of you are going to an amazing place too. And when you get to your initiation, trust it, because we need you to hold that line of consciousness so that we all, as a group, as a collective, stay in that higher vibration, expecting only the highest and best good for each and every one of ourselves. Because when we have our own higher consciousness that's manifesting, we're then like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the whole collective rises up. And as we do this, is as a team, we hold each other as we each go through this initiation, and we just hold the space for each other and say, you got this, you got this. Take a breath, take a holy breath, take a holy breath, listen to the message, walk forward. We all do that in our whole planetary collective consciousness. And that's what's going to rise us out of all of the messes that we're seeing. All of that is just the initiation process for the entire planet. Are you willing to hold that line with me, that you and all of us are transcending into a higher consciousness? I can hold that now. I have faith in it. I have evidence of it. I've just lived it. And it was the most amazing, scariest freaking experience. But I got this now. And I've got it for you too. I'm holding the line for you all. And for those of you who were holding the line for me, I got so many messages from people saying, I hope you make it. I'm keeping you in my thoughts. I'm so excited for you. I was like, when I finally got here and we got, access to my messages, there were so many. I was kind of overwhelmed, quite frankly, because some of you, like, I don't know personally. I just see your names, and to have you, I knew that you were holding space. So you holding space for me to transition in that way, you guys were the reason. And all the people that I know personally that I know were holding space for us, you all were the collective consciousness that sent those angels at the perfect time. The customs agent that was like, let me check the back and not the side, he was an angel. He just let us go. The Tibor at the Hungarian border, when everybody else was mean in that border, he was the light that came in and shining. You all did that. You all helped me do that. So when you understand how powerful consciousness is, the gratitude that is felt when you do up level is nothing I have never ever experienced. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your messages saying, I missed the daily tune in, because I couldn't even think about it. But then all of a sudden I was getting ready today and I was like, I'm kind of nervous and I'm kind of excited. I'm nervous because I'm excited to regroup with you all. So thank you so much. I'm going to go and look at some of your messages. There's so many messages. It's so exciting. London is in the house. Hi, Kazembe. It's good to see your name. It's good to see you. I'm so happy for you and your family. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow I'm working on some cool stuff to present to you, because this place is way too beautiful to not include you all. So there's going to be immersions. There's going to be events like with all this stuff kind of lifting. You can still travel. As I've noticed, as mentioned, you can still travel. But if it's something that you're not wanting to do, eventually this is going to lift. And we're going to be hanging out. We're going to be hanging out in this place. Look, y'all, it's sunset here. Thank you for joining me for sunset. But there's going to be some good stuff. We're going to be doing some daily tune-ins together here in Saranda. Are you familiar with Penny Pierce? No, I'm not. I haven't heard of Penny Pierce. Your experiences and explanations are real life examples of explanation in book frequency. I'm listening to. Oh, okay. I haven't heard of that. Sharon, thank you. I'll check her out. I needed to hear this so badly today. I feel like I'm on the edge of a cliff and I'm being asked to jump without knowing what's on the bottom. I keep hearing, do you trust me? Yeah. You know, that week before we left with the whole Wells Fargo mess and knowing that our window of time was like so small that we could leave so that our driver could get back. Who was it? Tara. Like I mean, I could barely breathe for days, you guys. I was so nervous, and more so from like I was so afraid of the disappointment. And my beautiful friend Mary, you know, I was texting with her one day, and my ego was really big, and it was mean as hell because I was just like, yeah. I mean, and it was the purge. It was the next level of purge that had to happen before we left. And I was texting her, and you know, and she finally texted me back, but she texted me to my ego, and it was the most beautiful text. At first I was like, meh, but then I kept reading it, and my ego kept hearing it. And she said, and her text literally was, hopefully Mary, I don't think you'll mind if I share this because it was so beautiful. But she said literally, to the ego of Vedette, you need to leave my friend alone. You need to quiet down. You know, her soul has control, not control. I wish I should read it, but she talked directly to my ego, and it was so beautiful. So Tara, I'm talking to your ego. Jump. You can trust. That soul knows exactly where it's taking you, and it's going to take you all the way descending. When you jump off that cliff, we've talked about this 2 weeks ago now. You will descend all the way down to where you think your face is going to like shove on the ground. You're going to hit it and you're going to die. And then all of a sudden you're like, you get your wings, and all of a sudden you start to soar. And the crazy thing is, I need to share it with you all. The flag, the Albanian flag, is this cool red, and it's got this eagle, and it's super. I mean, I swear when I see it, I'm like, there's the eagle. It's like it's flying up, you know. There's my wings. We got the wings. It just came to me. We got the wings. So dive down to the terror, like surrender, jump off that cliff, and know that at the last possible minute, your spirit's going to let you go all the way down until you go so deep where you're just like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And all of a sudden your wings come. And I know it because I just lived it in a really dramatic way. And you get your wings. And then we showed up here, and we now have a flag that has some wings on it. I'm going to show it to you guys somehow. I don't know how to do that right now, but I'm exactly there as well, Tarla. Yeah, all I can do is trust because I have no idea what tomorrow will bring. Yeah, y'all are hearing this, right? Like, jump, trust. I can't say it any other way. There's only so many words, but tell me, you know, like send me whatever it is that you are looking to. I don't want to use the word manifest, whatever it is you want to experience, send it to me in a DM, and I will hold the vision for you. I will hold the line of belief for you, because I had people holding the line of belief that this was going to be an easy trip. We were just going to, you know, we're going to go through. And although I was in it, sometimes I lost faith. But when I lost faith, I knew that I had a whole circle holding the faith for me, including many of you. So if you've got something that you're scared of, shoot me an email, send me a DM, tell me what is it that you are wanting out of this experience. You may not know what it's going to look like, but you just might say, Badette, I'm about to jump off a cliff. All I want to experience is a relationship that is healthy, that is abundant, whatever it is, and I will hold that for you. That's what I'm here to do. I'm a pretty good space holder for people. Hold that line through your holy breath. I love that. Yeah, the holy breath. I literally kept saying those words every breath. I mean, consciously, I would sit there in the back of that van breathing, be like, holy breath in, holy breath out, holy breath in, holy breath out, holy breath in, holy breath out. Like literally, you all. It was the most beautiful experience. It was the most beautiful experience because it was so uncomfortable. Millions of Canadians had their initiation this week in Ottawa. Holy crap. When I came back and started to look at the truckers convoy, man, it is so exciting to watch that. So, Isabel, thanks for mentioning that because we are manifesting so much love and unity. And then I saw that there's like convoys being planned in Australia. There was like 8 different convoys. There's one in the US that's being all through Europe, the Netherlands. Like people are like, whoa, we see what you're doing, Canada. We're going to join it. So, yeah, the whole world's going through an initiation and we're all breathing our holy breath and we're all watching each other go through this time and this birth. And it's exciting. Thanks, Isabel. That was I'm so glad you mentioned that because my heart was soared this morning when we didn't have Wi-Fi right away. So we got it, late yesterday and I just couldn't even pick up a screen. I just had to breathe. And this morning I was like waiting for the sun to come up because I wanted to see this. And I was reading, looking at all the updates and everything. And I just saw how this whole Canada thing is blowing up in like an amazing way. And then it's now spreading across the world. That's what this is about because we're holding the line and we're going through our own initiations and holding the line while we do it. Oh, I love it. All right. Yes, Isabel. I have 2 babies, all from natural birth. Yes, yes, yes. So you know what you're doing, Sharon. We all know what we're doing in whatever way like birth comes to you, even if you haven't given birth. Like it's not where you have to go through that to understand what we're talking about here. You know what we're doing. I'm manifesting Greece too and the end of the pandemic. Yes, Sharon. And I hope when you come here, like I want you to come to Albania so you can see Albania and I can show you around and then we'll go to Greece and do something there too. We can do that in a half an hour. Drive a half an hour, or it's a half an hour ferry ride to right over there to the island, right? That I'm looking at. Can you believe I'm looking at an island in Greece right now? I can't. Okay, we are a team. We are. How old are your kids now? I'm so excited the things coming in, but juggling littles and eating are a challenge. I have teenagers, so yeah, little. But you know what? When this idea was birthed, they were real little. So I've transitioned. I've done this whole journey with kids and parenting kids. I've been there. I know it. I'm still there. I'm still there. So yes, just like that's the whole process. The whole process of change is doing it while you're still living normal life, right? That's how we learn how to hold the line. That's how we learn consciousness and what is really important. What do we focus our time and efforts on? What do we look at? How do we transition and bring these beautiful beings with us and giving them, and yours a little, Tiffany, is that who that was? It said that, yeah, Tiffany, but also we have to be willing to allow others who are in our life to have their choice to join us or not, right? That's one of the hardest parts of that second trimester, third trimester metaphor of transition is coming to the point where we then have to have people choose whether they want to be part of our vision or not. And if it's a no, again, holy breath, but allowing them to have their choice. And if it's a yes, again, keeping the consciousness together so everybody's on the same page. My husband and I mean, I just told him today, I was like, honey, we have navigated something that could have either torn us apart, but we came together and and I've had 2 different experiences of marriage and I had some pretty big initiations with the first one and they tore us apart. We just couldn't find the line together. We couldn't hold the line together. This one, Bud and I had our moments, but at the end of the night, the end of the day, we'd still say, we still doing this, right? We're on the same page. And we like after this, y'all, like, I don't know what to say. I want to cry. We're going to make it. This marriage is going to make it now. Not that I ever doubted it, but I've never experienced a relationship like I have because it is stronger than anything I've ever experienced. And we had to go through this initiation together, even as a married couple, to understand what we could do together. And now we both are pretty convinced we can create magic. And I can guarantee you we're going to create magic. I don't know where it goes from here because this is like magic to me. I'm like, this is the epitome of everything I've ever wanted. So like, what's next? So I have to wait now, not wait, but I'm going to just ride this out, celebrate, until the next conception period comes, till we conceive a new idea together. And when we conceive that new idea, I no doubts now that we will, between Bud and I, we will create it. Ugh, so good. It's amazing. I'm so excited, y'all. How old are you? Okay. I'm here in Ottawa right now. Oh, you are, Tarla. It's an absolutely amazing, a life-changing experience. Tarla, you're so lucky to be able to see all of that. I mean, like we're watching it through screens, but for you to be there in that energy, whether like you see it with your own two eyes or you participate, I don't know. But holy crap, like Tarla, there's some sunlight, there's some sun rays coming in. Ottawa's being blessed. We are all being blessed. Thank you for sharing that. That's so exciting, Tyler. I'm a little bit jealous, but not enough to want to leave Albania right now. I will come to Albania. Let's take the ferry. Me too. I want to take the ferry as well. Okay, I had to experience on our way to Ottawa to so hard traveling with two babies and my husband. Yeah, traveling is not easy, but it's worth it. It's its own initiation, right? Okay. This has been an amazing daily tune in. Thank you for allowing me to share. Thank you for allowing me to bring my excitement. Thank you for being a part of this, y'all. Like, I am so grateful. I'm grateful to be back. I've got some exciting things that I'm kind of toying on and churning now that I'm like free and clear of darkness. I'm like literally in the light. I'm feeling light. We're gonna have some fun. I'm gonna try to be creative with these daily tune-ins. I want to bring you everything I got now because I'm clear and I can hold the line now. And I want to hold the line for each and every one of you that may be going through an initiation. And I want to keep you in my heart and in my space. I am going to go to enjoy this last few seconds of the sunrise. Thank you all so much for being here. I will see you tomorrow. Love to you. Mwah. I love this community. I appreciate you.